All right, well, let's jump in. I mean, we should probably start out with this trucker convoy and the Alberta blockade. This isn't a political podcast. I mean, God knows there's
What
been enough
trucker
said about
convoy?
it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what is this thing of which you speak? It's funny. I was looking at the headlines
You're from
today.
Ottawa, so what's the big deal? I mean, there's not what's different with
Yeah.
truckers? Isn't that what goes on in Ottawa every day?
Well, it's funny you say that because being from Ottawa, there are our right to protest, our right to advocate for our rights. I mean, it happens in Ottawa literally almost every day. But there's some nonsense, a lot of nonsense going on. I think they've made whatever point they came to make. I think that got a bit distorted in the whole process, and maybe they've got there's a whole bunch of nonsense that kind of went on. And it's funny, I was looking at the headlines. They say, well, there's tens of thousands. We're not leaving. And the Ottawa police saying, yeah, there's about 50 of you. So I don't really know
Yeah,
what's
let's have a
happening.
bingo game.
Yeah, I'm a little more focused now on what's happening in Alberta at the border, because once you get close to a border,
Yeah,
that
and
becomes
Manitoba, by the way, there
oh
there was a
yeah,
blockade in
yeah.
Manitoba as well. I don't know if it's still on, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, I think during the last show we did talk about vaccine mandates at the border, and I think the food industry is working with mandates. I mean, let's face it, empty shelves are bad for business. They'll actually figure something out. I mean, they'll
Mhm.
actually get food somehow into Canada, mandates or not. That's basically how it works. The economics of supply chains are so powerful. They'll it will push things through. So I have faith in the supply chain. However, as we talked about last time, I mean, I was a little bit concerned about timing. I mean, in the middle of January, I was wondering about produce, center of the store, dry goods, but things are holding on. I mean, I actually say I can feel that the food industry is delivering. However, since our last show, there is this protest underway, which really has garnered a lot of media attention. And what was really surprising, and I did speak with some truckers, some people involved in the convoy early on, and they did not want to talk to media because they saw media
Mhm.
as the enemy.
Yeah.
And
This
now
mainstream media stuff. Yeah.
they're blaming media for what they call COVID hysteria,
Yeah.
which I don't agree with because media is doing its job essentially. But this convoy, I was never comfortable with the idea of the convoy because I knew at some point it'd be recovered by different groups. The message would be diluted. You're seeing all sorts of things going on. And what we saw last weekend in Ottawa was unexcusable. I mean, some of the things, I'm an ex military officer.
Yeah.
Like
Shameful.
seriously, the
Shameful.
Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Terry Fox. My family and I, we run the Terry Fox Run every single year. We have tremendous respect for Terry Fox. Really, the statue and of course
Several
the
lines that several lines that should never be crossed were
I
crossed.
know, and
Um,
regardless if they're bad apples related to the convoy or not, it really just got people galvanized into one city to do all of these things.
yeah.
And so you have to take some responsibility for what has happened as
Mhm.
an organizer, and it's quite
Yeah.
unfortunate. I don't know how you're feeling about all this right now.
Yeah, I mean, not particularly great, of course, about what happened. I think it's naive to think that organizing a protest. And again, I'm all for your right to protest and have your thoughts expressed at the political level. But it's naive to think these things don't become a vehicle, so to speak, for
Yeah.
those with other agendas. So I think it could have been, could have been, should have been much better managed, and I think we're not done with it yet. And I think that we're in a very interesting time around mandates, and some countries just taking all limits off. Maybe that's too early. Maybe that's too soon. I mean, we're in the third year of this, man. It's tough.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
absolutely. And
and I,
and
I
of
think the
course
media's done,
the
and I think the media's done a pretty good job of covering. I mean, they're always, and it's not without some fairness. They're looking at the worst pictures over and over again versus some of the other things. But I thought
I
they were
know.
doing their best. I mean, I was watching some of them. They just got mobbed when they set up a camera to just, hey, tell us what you're thinking, and they got mobbed by idiots. So
And you got
I
to
would,
feel bad for them, and and some of them have been threatened and spat on, and
yeah, it's
but
ridiculous.
of course, the other thing that I've mentioned on
Hmm.
social media, and I was just amazingly, surprisingly criticized for, is that I actually did say that the convoy itself may actually become more disruptive than the mandates themselves. I mean, and this is exactly what's going on right now in Alberta,
Yes.
Manitoba, Ottawa. I'm concerned, and yesterday you saw farmers actually go through the barricade, RCMP's barricade,
Yeah.
with tractors in support of truckers. So I'm very concerned about our social peace, to be honest. And I think it's really time to, I think the message was given. We took the
Yeah.
message. It's time to go back to communities and reflect on what's going on right now. And I do think it's making governments think differently about
Mm.
balancing food security, our nation's food security, and saving lives as well. And I've argued that perhaps it's important that we think about that. And that I was very happy to hear yesterday that the federal government has actually decided to create a task force to look at supply chain issues, which is
Hmm.
really,
Yeah.
I mean, since the start of COVID, I've actually been part of three task force, a national task force organized by private organizations. Now, to see the federal government do that is a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, and as you know, working with Retail Council of Canada, I mean, we've long been saying, listen, just remove some of the interprovincial barriers if you want to improve supply
Oh,
chain. So,
my goodness.
like
Yeah.
we've kind of flown by the headline news. There's some things that can happen within our own control, within government's own control. So you're right, it's good. So let me summarize by saying it feels like, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the impact on average Canadians' access to food on grocery shelves was not as severe as you thought it might be. There's other implications we're going to talk about later, but that you're what you're hearing, because you talk to people on all kinds of different sides in the industry, is things are fine, few gaps maybe here and there, but generally, the impact is fairly minimal. This kind of, I get, what are we now, 2 weeks into the mandate? Let's
Yep.
roll it back to the beginning of the issue with 10% less truckers, I guess, or whatever the number is, crossing the border, and the US mandate as well. So basically, you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being everything's 100% fine, everything's working fine, 1 being, the opposite of that. Where would you put yourself?
I'd say about eight, between eight and
Okay.
nine, I would say, because it is messy out there. I mean, I think everyone knows that it's not perfect. And
Hmm.
as a consumer, you do not want to walk into a grocery store expecting perfection. It's not going to happen for the next several months.
Years.
So
I would say longer, but yeah. Yeah.
yeah, at
Potentially
least,
longer.
and Eric Laflèche, the CEO of Metro, did mention that on the call last week, on his call presenting financial results, is that
Hmm.
supply chain woes are real. I mean, that's that, but we're not going to have a problem having access to food. So, but of course, there are other issues